Welcome to Fantasy Football with Corey and Kyle. In this video, we're talking about Michael Pittman and Kyle Pitts and how the 2024 fantasy football season was the pits for them.
I see what you did there. I like it.
And before we get started, I'm going to invite you over to fantasyfootballadvice.com, where you can see all of our videos, all of our articles, all of our podcasts from not just us, but all of the other content creators that are with Fantasy Sports Advice Network. Plus, you can go pro and join our online community where you can gain access to visit with us and ask us questions and mingle with other fantasy football enthusiasts and get more extra content, all that good stuff in a private community. All right, Kyle. Let's talk about Michael Pittman first. We were kind of high on this guy in the past, but not so much anymore.
I've been a little high on this guy for several years. He had one good year out of those. He rewarded me for that loyalty. And then it's over. Like,
what a tease.
I know, like, he is a good player. He's got good size, got good hands, but like he just doesn't fit with Anthony Richardson for some reason.
Yeah.
They just can't get that connection going. And, you know, I'm not saying it's impossible for them to never get on that same page, but, you know, Richardson's not the most accurate quarterback. He seems to fare better chucking it down the field and just letting his speedsters run up underneath it.
Yeah.
Running it himself. So, unless we see some accuracy improvements or, you know, a little bit more rapport between the two, like, I don't see Pittman turning it around going forward either. Like, I think he's just going to be on that struggle bus.
Yeah, that his success is solely dependent on his quarterback, which is really sad, right? And I mean, even when we saw Flacco come in this year, he still didn't have that great of success. But Flacco wasn't the same as he was the year before. So I think our hopes got way too high when Flacco came in. We're like, Pittman's back, baby. And then Flacco just kind of sucked, right?
It wasn't Cleveland Flacco, that's for sure.
Yeah, so we got let down there. But Anthony Richardson, like you said, until he gets his accuracy under control, Pittman's going to struggle. And unfortunately, I don't know if that can happen. I think the Colts are going to ride Anthony Richardson a little too long, and I feel like Pittman's going to get wasted. Or Pittman's going to get really upset and demand a trade or something. I don't know what's going to happen, and that would be in all of our best interest, honestly. But like you said, I feel like he's very capable. He being Richardson is very capable of just chunking it up, right? And let his receiver go get it, which is where we saw the most success with Alec or even Josh Downs. You know, Josh Downs had some luck running the ball too. But my concern with Pittman is his scoring too, right? Like, he's not scoring much. He scored 4 touchdowns all season. Not great. Whereas you go over to Downs and he scored 5, you know, so even Downs outscored Pittman. I take that back. Pittman scored 3 to Downs is 5. Sorry. Yeah. So 3 touchdowns on a season is not good. And just out of curiosity,
I'm for a number 1 receiver. It's supposed to be the number 1 receiver on that team. 3 touchdowns?
Yeah, and Alec Pierce at least had 7. He had 7 touchdowns on the season.
They were all long bombs. That's what I'm saying, man.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm not seeing it here, but because this isn't showing for Downs, but I think he actually had some rushing touchdowns too. So he's outscoring. So everyone is outscoring Pittman, right? Because of the type of wide receiver he is, even though he's so talented. And that's a concern for me.
I mean, Jelani Woods has been on IR since the offseason. I think he scored more than Michael Pittman this year.
That's sad. Well, Alec Pierce finished as the number 43 wide receiver. Pittman the 41 wide receiver. Downs is the 35. So they're all kind of in that same. That's not wide receiver 1 where you're taking Pittman in these drafts. You're taking your wide receiver too, honestly.
Instead of
But
the old cult of personality, you got the clump of mediocrity right
yeah,
there at the wide receivers for that team, and
well,
it's
and you
and
don't,
it's because of Anthony Richardson.
yeah, and it's not like there's too many mouths to feed, right? It's not like one of those offenses. It's just you don't know who he's going to throw the ball to ever at this point, right?
Pretty much.
So it's weird to where Pittman has been put on the same level as Downs or Alec Pierce is really sad and
It
depressing.
is. It is sad, and it just tells you how bad Anthony Richardson's accuracy is. That you got a 6'4", 220-pound receiver. All you got to do is get it in the vicinity, and he should be able to make a play on it. And if you can't even get that done, like you need some work, bub. Like
Yeah, it's not pretty. I'll give it that.
not at all.
So going into next season, then, do you think Anthony Richardson takes that step forward to help Pittman, or are you fading Pittman pretty much completely?
I'm fading Pittman. Like I'm not unless he falls in a draft really far and I can get him as like a wide receiver 4.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want anything to do with him. Like you can't rely on him.
No, I totally agree.
His floor is like 5, right? He had a few good games this year where he had
Wait, are we still
25.
talking about Pittman, or are you talking about Richardson? Because that's where his floor is at too.
He had exactly. Pittman had 1 25-point game, a couple in the teens. Everything else was single digits.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have, and we talked about this with other receivers, boom bust type receivers, like when your range is, well, I'm looking here. He had one game that was 2.4.
Yep.
When your range is 2.4 to 25.2, it's a crapshoot. And that's not a guy that I'm going to rush out to get on my team. Even in Dynasty, like I'm not worried about trying to acquire any of these receivers because I love Downs too,
Yeah.
but as long as Anthony Richardson's QB there, I'm not in any hurry to rush out and trade for any of these receivers, especially for the price you're going to have to pay to acquire Pittman. Yeah, it'll be a little cheaper than it was like 2 seasons ago maybe, but I wouldn't be willing to give anything for him unless I was absolutely desperate and I could get him for like a 3rd-round draft rookie pick, like maybe.
So here's the thing: Downs finished ahead of Pittman as in the overall scoring, and that's after missing 3 games. Okay. My thing there, and granted, Pittman missed 1, so he had 2 less games than Pittman.
Yeah.
I feel more confident moving forward with Downs than I do Pittman. He seems to have a better rapport. He does get to run some end arounds and do some different stuff. They use him a little different. But he's also, even though he's outperforming Pittman, he's going to be cheaper than Pittman is. Yep. Because of name recognition. Pittman's still the number 1 wide receiver, right? So you're going to be able to get Downs cheaper. And he's probably, gosh, this is a wild thing to think, but he's going to be more consistent, at least, than Pittman.
Yeah, no, I think so too.
Like, I think for the most part, you can rely on him. Granted, I mean, his ceiling is not quite as high probably, but he's still going to be more consistent.
Yeah. No,
and I want consistency more than I want the boom bust player.
Yeah, especially when you're looking at both being a potential wide receiver, maybe 3 if you waited on receiver, or 4. Like, once you get that deep, you want consistency because that guy is there specifically. So if something happens to one of your top guys or you have a bye week you have to cover, you don't want to have to put him in on a 2-point week. I'd rather get 8 points every week and know that's what I'm going to get when I plug him in than might get 2, might get 15. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. All right. I feel like we've spent enough time on that, loser. Let's jump to our abusive relationship. The guy who makes you ashamed to be named Kyle.
Yes.
And let's talk about Kyle Pitts and how he just can't stop letting us down, even with improved quarterbacks.
He's dead to me. Like, he is literally dead to me. I defended this guy for a couple years when he came in the league, and then I was like, all right, I'm done. Then they went and traded for Kirk Cousins, and then they drafted Penix. And, there was just no improvement in his game. Like, How did he fool every scout in the world into thinking this guy was a good tight end? He's just, I don't get it. I don't get it.
Well, apparently he was going to move all over the formation, and he's like a wide receiver also, and he's going to get all these opportunities.
Well,
And it doesn't matter who the coach is. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. None of that matters. He's just still not producing.
well, and he's big and tall and agile and all of this stuff. 6'6", like he had 4 touchdowns this year. This guy should be
And
a
2 of those came in
touchdown-
one
this guy
game.
should-
So,
This guy should be a red zone touchdown machine.
yep.
And it's just, I don't know if it's because nobody trusts him. I don't know if it's just because he's not getting open. Like I don't know what the deal is, but if you draft him, you just are a glutton for punishment at this point.
Yeah.
Like he's literally in a year that the tight end position was the weakest I've seen it in a long time, since before Gronk probably. Like he still finishes the 15 overall tight end. That's how bad he was.
Yep.
He finished 15th in a terrible year for tight ends.
Yep.
Like that's sad.
Well, he at this point is like the 5th receiving option on his team, because I would put him behind Drake London, Darnell Mooney, Ray McLeod, and Bijan probably.
Probably behind Younghoe Koo as well. Like
put
him behind the kicker, make him the 6th option, honestly.
I mean, are you wrong? No.
I also just really like saying his name, Younghoe Koo.
I knew you were up to. I knew you just wanted to do that. But yeah, I mean, he's hardly even a part of the offense, which is really sad and strange, because it's not like they brought him in to be a blocker or anything.
No, he can't do that either. He's literally a decoy on the field. He's a crash test dummy. That's all he is.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, but I'm giving up on him completely. You still might have some trade value in him just based off a name, but I doubt it. I think right now it's just like, why would I want Kyle Pitts to use me? No way, dude. No way.
They're like, listen, the kid can't play football, but he looks really menacing at 6'6" in that black and red jersey. So let's just go ahead and take you. Like, how do you take that guy that early in a draft?
Well, considering he was so dominant in college. I mean, he really was. He was a beast. But then he got to the pros and he's just not anymore, right? Like, it is what it is. Reminds me of like Zion in NBA, right? Just totally dominating out there. And then he gets to the pros and just kind of meh.
He's like the Jamarcus Russell of tight ends.
Oh, gosh.
It's
Ouch.
it's sad. It's so sad.
Ouch. Why would you say such a thing?
I know, right?
Oh, that's brutal. Now you're abusive.
Not as abusive as he is to our relationship.
That's right. Yeah. So this is a
nice so 2025, not drafting.
Don't
never drafting him again.
Don't draft him again. Trade him away in your dynasties. Give up on Kyle Pitts. He's not worth it. There's too many other emerging tight end options, including Jonnu Smith. These guys are way more productive. Njoku, stuff like these guys who are emerging and becoming more reliable. Kyle Pitts is not reliable. I'm guessing it's a Kyle thing.
Probably. We're kind of crappy athletes.
At least you could probably block.
But like, and here's the thing too, because I know a lot of you players out there, when you're looking at dynasty trades, you might use a trade calculator or trade like dynasty rankings, things like that. For some reason, people still have this guy ranked high. It seems he's like starting to fall after this year. Finally, I'm looking at Fantasy Pros right now. They got him at 13. He was top 10 going into the season, and most of the season he was in that top 10. But, when you're looking at, Corey mentioned young up-and-comers, Tucker Kraft is a good one that I would love to have and give a shot on my team over him. Yep. But even sliding down, guys like Jatavion Sanders that came in the league last year, Ben Sinnott with Washington, like those are young guys that I would much rather take a chance on than waste a draft pick And you might be able to trade Pitts for one of them right now in your dynasty and get something else with it. So
Yeah.
I would take a shot, look at something like that.
Kyle Pitts is still high in dynasty rankings because he's only 24.
Yeah.
I
He's
think
only
that's why
24. He's been crappy for 5 years now.
Yeah, I think he's 24, and that's why he's still high in dynasty rankings, because they're thinking, well, he's only 24, so maybe
he can suck for a decade, still be 29 years old, and turn into a decent tight end eventually.
Tight ends last a long time, especially if you don't get used very much.
That's a lot of dynasty tight ends, or a lot of dynasty championships not to win while you're waiting on him to emerge.
Absolutely. Though. But it's not like he's been used a lot, so he won't be worn out by the time he's 29. So that's
no, cool. He's just jogging routes and
pick me. All right, guys, before we sign off here, I just want to invite you back to fantasyfootballadvice.com one more time. Come join and see all of the content from all of our different content creators. Hang out, get advice, give advice, post some polls, let people answer it, and ingest some extra content if you go pro. All right, guys, that's going to do it for us this week. And until next time, we'll see you.
See you next time.